Hello, welcome to Dio Relation Tales. Please subscribe my channel. I have always loved my husband. We've been together since college and he does everything to satisfy me, and I appreciate, but not to sound ungrateful and spoiled, but I feel like there's something missing in my marriage. I don't know what it is yet, but I'd rather keep this to myself. Lauren, he would often call me lovingly after he comes back from the golf club, and honestly I find my husband really attractive, and he works out every weekend, so he was pretty buff. He's everything I could ever ask for, but for some reason I feel I need something more, and I know it's not fair on him, but it can't be helped. Girl, why are you looking all abandoned and confused? My best friend's playful voice rang into my ear as I sipped my latte with absent-mindedness. I looked up to see her staring up at me with all seriousness. I gave her a reassuring smile. I'm fine, just a little disoriented. I flashed her my most reassuring smile, but knowing Jane, she wouldn't buy it one bit. She gave me her Frud Denzinger comment on me. You are not doing okay, I can tell, and there it was, like I anticipated. I sighed. Isn't that obvious? I asked as I sipped my latte, and she nodded, still looking at me questioningly. I don't know. I leaned back on my chair, then my eyes caught Jane's grin, and I knew what was coming next. Let's go to the club, we said in unison. Her voice was an excited squeal and mine was a bored tone. I knew she was going to say that I haven't been to the club since my bachelor party, and after that I pretty much stomped on the idea of going to a club because of John whenever Jane brought it up, being the devoted wife that I am, but now I don't think I can anymore. I gave her a smile and breathed out. Okay, I don't think I can decline anymore, I said, and I saw her face light up in an excited gleam. I looked at myself in my closet mirror, having second thoughts about the club. After coffee, Jane and I went to a fashion store, and while I sit there between heaven and earth, I watched her pick out my outfit. She picked at least a dozen, but I sent them back saying it was too short or too long or too covered or too revealing. She grew tired of me and pretty much shut me up, shoving a couple of dresses into the shopping bag, and I couldn't refuse. I stared at the last dress I was down to after I tried and didn't like the rest. I frowned. It was a short body-hugging sequin dress. There was fur at the rim of the dress. It looked cute, but it showed too much legs, and my cleavage could be seen even though fur was covering the top of it. It had no sleeve. She didn't even consider the fact that I was married, and she went ahead and gave me this. I muttered, visibly frustrated, but I sighed at the end of the outburst because I asked for this. I needed to get out of the house for a change, and also John was out for a business summit in another city, and he won't be back on Sunday. What's a way to spend a perfect Friday night than to spend it at club? I was deliberating whether to take the dress off and tell Jane I was sick when I suddenly heard honking in the compound. I looked out the window, and speak of the devil, it was Jane. She was getting out of the car, and she ran into the house. I was still standing there, frozen, brain on sleep mode, when she burst into the room. I was wondering. She stopped as she sized me up, and she screamed hysterically like a cheerleader girl that got asked to the prom by her football captain boyfriend. The scream went straight into my ear, and my brain woke up. You're so wearing this, she yelled at me, and my face scrunched up in disapproval. Jane ignored the visible protest on my face and grabbed me. She took a nice heel to go with the dress and took me straight to the car. Turning on the ignition, we were on our way, whether I liked it or not. You know the point where you make a decision and then you later regret it. I'm the point right now. I'm still wondering what I am doing here. As the loud music blasted up and down, left and right throughout the club, the smell of smoke and intense alcohol making me sick. Then I saw Jane coming towards me with a bottle and some glasses. I scowl. I know you don't like alcohol, So I brought you something light with a little bit of fruit. She grinned at me. Thank you, I replied her sarcastically. You're welcome, she said happily as she poured the drink into the glasses. I rolled my eyes. I was being sarcastic. She handed me the glass and I just stared at her. Her eyes were telling me to take it. As she looked at the glass and at me, I scoffed and collected it anyway. Take a sip, you'll love it. At this point I can't trust her anymore, but I was still curious at what was the wine will taste like. I tipped the glass towards my mouth and took a sip, the flavor spreading on my tongue and my eyes widened. The drink was sweet and a little sour hot, even though it was icy cold because of the ball of ice in the glass. I could taste the variety of berries, and it was like a fruit party in my mouth. I hate to admit it, but I love it. I drank the whole glass in one gulp. I put down the glass and I breathed out. Wow, that was good, Jane interrupted, and I faced her, smiling. Yeah, it's surprisingly nice. What's the name? I asked her as I poured myself another glass. I am not really a fan of sweet stuffs, but anything with fruits or berries has me tremendously hooked. It's like an obsession and a weakness. That's why John makes sure to stack the fridge high and mighty with fruits and berries. It's called Hawaii. Sam interrupted Jane as she was about to tell me what the name of the drink was. I turned to thank the person, and I suddenly stopped as my sight met a pair of gorgeous silver-colored eyes. I finally completed my statement when he smiled, and I felt weak in the knees. He was beautiful, but that would be an understatement. He was unbelievably handsome. He might be on Jay's level of handsome, maybe even beyond. My heart thumped uncontrollably high. He said and smiled again. If he smiled again, I might pass out. Hello, I replied, still staring at him, and he stared back, expecting me to say something more, but I was brain dead and I just stared shamelessly like a puppy in love, even though I was legally married to an also handsome beyond measure man. I'm Tommy, he finally said when he realized I lost my tongue. His voice traveled up my spine to my brain, and I blinked. Oh, I'm Lauren. I finally found my speech, and he gave me a toothy smile. I smiled back while all these was going on. Jane was there smiling like a drunk, but it was clear that she was Tommy, and I talked and talked, and for the first time today I laughed at what he said. I stopped laughing. I saw that he was just staring at me. You're really pretty, he said suddenly, and I blushed a bright red. My hands shook, and I was at a loss for words. I just looked at him, and all of a sudden his face was coming closer and closer towards mine. I know I should look away, I should turn, but my neck muscles just didn't move for some reason until our lips met. Fireworks went throughout my whole body, and I closed my eyes as he kissed me deeply. He was a really great kisser. I should say he must have a lot of practice with other women. The thought of me seeing him with other women repulsed me, even though I shouldn't feel this way. I just met him. I know nothing about him except his name. It's not right, but I just can't pull away. His touch was calling to me, and I placed hand on his arm, and it was clear that he worked out because he was ripped. He pulled away and smiled at me. I looked down. Want to go somewhere more private, he asked, and I nodded immediately. How shameless of me. I looked around for Jane, then I saw a message from her. I shook my head. She had been taken away by a man she was flirting with. The series of EMES she sent was clear that something was going to happen, but I don't mind it. I was used to her waywardness. Tony led me to a private room only for VIPs at the top of the club, and I looked around the room. The room gave off a really romantic vibe, and it gave me a fuzzy feeling at the bottom of my stomach. Andy from his business summit after that night with Tony. I missed John, and I was glad he was coming home. I wore something he would like and waited for him on the dinner table. He opened the door, and I stood up to welcome him. Lauren, his happy voice made me happy, and he embraced me. I hugged him tighter. He ate his food eagerly, and We went up to the room. Another passionate night followed. I have to say I really love my husband, that's why. That night with Tony was just a fluke. I won't see him again. How did I get here? I'm asking myself again. I should stop following Jane around because she might absolutely be the end of me. She came to me the other day to let us attend a party together. It was a night party. I was skeptical at first, but I had no choice, so I followed her, fearing that she might make a fool of herself and hook up with another guy that might actually kidnap her this time. So there I was sitting quietly when another guy came to sit beside me. The guy was so handsome. Let's just accept that my other weakness is hot guys, because there's John, Tony, and this new guy who name apparently is Alex. As I have come to know, he's a really cool guy and we hit it off pretty well. He has a really good sense of humor and that got me. Then we started drinking and apparently I got drunk, but I was conscious enough to know what I doing. It reached a point where I just stared at the guy and he stared back, and I don't know if I was hallucinating or not because I was pretty sure I saw fireworks in his eyes. Then we kissed and the rest was history. I woke up to him staring at me as I slept, and he was smiling like a teenage boy in love. The way I flew out of the bed was almost comical. He called my name, but I didn't look back as I called an Uber to my house. I cleaned myself up and waited for John. Like always, I felt guilty for this one, but from could remember, Alex was simply amazing. If I could say, I know I'm losing my brain cells at this point, because two guys, that's just wrong. I might have to cut tie. Swallowed, knowing what was going to go down. I sat down at the foot of the bed and Tony came to join me. We don't have to if you don't want to, he said, and my heart fluttered. He was being really considerate, but I had already made up my mind. I'm going through with this. I'm here. Why can't I just go through with it? I smiled at him and moved closer, taking the initiative to kiss him. This time he smiled into the kiss and brought me closer. He ran his hands down my back to unzip my dress. That night was one I would never forget. Since my wedding night, I left before he woke up and I hurried home, and in Uber I made my way into my bathroom and soaked myself in the tub. I should be feeling regret and guilt, but on the contrary, I couldn't stop smiling and blushing because the memories from the night kept replaying and replaying in my head. It didn't stop, but I promised myself that it wouldn't happen again, that it was just a one-night stand with a very hot guy that I might never meet again, and I like it that way. After the bath, I was passing by the mirror when all of a sudden I stopped and looked at myself. My eyes widened tremendously as my own body shocked me. Pink and red love bites were all over my neck and chest. I gasped and looked closely. He did this. Tony left this marks all over me. Then my brain went to something he made that night. I am going to leave my marks all over your body. I'll claim you as mine. My face rent immediately. If only he knew I was married. This is never going to happen again, or so I thought. Oh wow, Jane, hysterical laugh almost shook the room as everyone looked to her. I told her what happened that night since morning, and she just laughed. It looked like she planned it, but I know she couldn't do something because her IQ was as big as a tangerine. No offense, Jane, I'm glad you're looking more radiant than ever, she said as she ate her salad loudly. What do you mean? My brows arched. I can tell, she snorted, and I scoffed, standing up and ready to go home to welcome my husband with Jane. At this point, it's a weekend. I am snuggling up with JN watching movie when we heard the doorbell. Are you expecting someone? I asked him as I was still watching the movie, but I looked up at him to seeing him grinning like a little kid. Yep, he simply said, and made his way to the door. You've always wanted to meet my friends, right? He turned the knob of the door. Yeah. I sat up and looked towards the open door. My face paled immediately and my heart dropped to the ground. Ta-ta, this is Tony and Alex. There are my buddies, and we also play golf together, guys. This is my beautiful wife Lauren. He was grinning like a kid that was excited to show his new toys to his friends at school. My heart pounded fiercely as I was at a loss for words while Alex and Tony just looked at me with shock written all over their faces, unable to say anything. Thank you so much for hanging in there with me on my true story, and I hope to see you again soon. Like and subscribe to know more about me. See you all.